with
Recording in progress.
uh, we get to start out with my remarks, and so I'm going to share this. Well, that wasn't where I wanted to start, but we'll get there. So I'm Roberta Levin. I am the new Faculty Senate President. I will be with you for 2 years because I guess I'm also the Faculty Senate President elect. But I wanted to take this opportunity to thank you all for being faculty senators and taking such an active role in faculty governance, which is critical to the functioning of any university. And I also want to give a special thanks to Chris Elder, who is our past president, who spent a lot of time trying to help me get ready to do all of this, um, telling me all the things I needed to do, repeating them when I forgot them or took inaccurate notes, and then repeating them a third time when I still didn't quite get them right. So thank you, Chris, for your patience and all your work, and to Nancy and Teresa for helping me get as far as we've gotten toward assigning people to committees. So one of the things that, while we're thanking Chris, that Chris helped do was to set up a tour of the new hospital pavilion. And the tour will be on August 29th from 10 to 11:30. You need to sign up on the sign up sheet so I can give Mike everyone's name. He said 25 to 30 people could go over. So this is in the calendar appointment. If you pull up my slides, you'll find the sign up sheet in there. And if you don't see it, just email me your name and I will fill you in. It's short notice, but at least we get to see it before a lot of other people on campus are getting to see the new pavilion. And hopefully it will be open soon and it will advance health care for all of us. Now, I am going to show you this short 2-minute orientation video. Again, this is, and I hope the sound comes through. I tried to get this in there correctly. But Chris and a team created this, so I'm just going to hit play and let you listen to what the work they did, which I think is excellent.
Dear colleagues, congratulations. Welcome to the Faculty Senate. I'm Chris Elder, Faculty Senate past president and associate professor in the Department of English.
And I'm Michelle Sturgis in the Department of Communication and Journalism. We're both on the ABQ campus.
Hello, and also joining from the ABQ campus, Faculty Senator and undergraduate engagement librarian, Olivia Baca from University Libraries and Learning Sciences.
Today we're here to just give you a brief introduction on how to prepare, participate, and collaborate within the Faculty Senate at UNM. So first, how do you participate in a Senate meeting? You can help set the agenda. So prior to meetings, there is a lot of committee work that's happening. So be sure to visit UNM's Faculty Senate webpage to see the list of committees that would be of interest to you. Be sure to review materials that are posted prior to each meeting. You'll want to give yourself at least maybe a couple hours sometimes due to the material. But that material is usually posted, if we're meeting on Tuesday, the materials are usually posted no later than 3 p.m. on the previous Friday. You'll also want to follow parliamentary procedures. We use Robert's Rules, so you'll be able to use your voice not only in those committee meetings, but at these larger Faculty Senate meetings through motions, discussions of those motions, and any questions that arise for you on what is being voted on within the Senate. Let's give you an example. So this week we are considering a new bachelor's degree in scuba diving at UNM. Do we have approval of the new bachelor's degree? Do I have a motion?
Olivia Baca, University Libraries and Learning Sciences. I so move.
Do we have a second?
Michelle Sturgis, Communication and Journalism. I second.
Any discussion?
We really need scuba at UNM. This is long past due.
Okay, University Secretary Nancy Middlebrook, would you please pull up the poll so we can vote on scuba at UNM? So this is just a very brief example of what you can expect at meetings. Also, you'll have a chance to share your experience and expertise within breakout groups. Some of these breakout groups will be themed, new topics each month, and others will maintain a particular theme throughout the meetings.
Yeah, and you know, Chris, this is exactly why I wanted to be a senator in the Faculty Senate. I am really excited about the opportunities to make a change in the campus community. So how do you get input so that you represent your department and college well? This is all about collaboration with your colleagues. So it begins with hallway conversations. These happen naturally and will happen prior to the Senate meeting and also after the Senate meeting. Second, you can more directly solicit input from your colleagues. Maybe you send out a survey once a year that asks your colleagues or faculty in the department and college what issues they find most pressing and what kinds of questions they want you to ask administrators that come to the Faculty Senate. And last, just intuit the vibes. So trust that you were elected to be a senator because your colleagues believe that you are someone who will represent them well. And there's a variety of ways in which you will put out those feelers and keep a pulse on what's happening on campus, and as well as in the Senate.
And as we continue thinking about collaborating, we also want to touch on how you might report out to your college and department once you have done committee work, once you have sat through a Faculty Senate meeting. And so the first thing that we're going to encourage you to do is to take your own notes. There will be official notes that are publicly posted, but they're going to capture really high-level detail. And by taking your own minutes, you'll be able to capture nuance and detail that you'll be able to share with your colleagues in the college. Which brings us to our second point, being really intentional about asking for time and making sure that you're carving it out so that you are able to update the folks in your department, ideally during regularly scheduled meetings. But the last point here is also utilizing the listserv. Sometimes things will come up quickly. Oftentimes faculty senators will want to gauge feedback from their college or department before they go to a meeting. And under those circumstances, then email is really critical. So thank you all for your time and attention. We've listed some resources that will be available in hyperlink form on the YouTube page as well. See you soon.
Welcome to the faculty. Dear colleagues,
Oops.
Congratulations.
So, thank you all, and I sent this link out. I know some people had a hard time accessing it. I assure you that if you go home and try to access it from home, it's much easier, especially if you're on the health sciences campus, because it's stored on main campus. So another thing I wanted to be sure and let you know about is that the 2025 Advancing Compliance and Ethics, or the ACE Awards, are coming up. So please take the time to nominate a colleague. The link is available on this presentation, which you all have access to. And if for some reason you can't find it, just send me an email and I'll send you a copy of the link. But it's always a good idea to nominate a colleague, especially someone that you really think demonstrates a strong commitment to integrity and ethical decision making at UNM. So, the fun stuff. There's still open committee seats, folks. Thank you to Nancy and Teresa for helping to put this list together. I know that there's a lot from specific colleges, and if you're at one of these colleges and know somebody that would like to serve on a committee, please reach out. We are going to send out another link and ask people to volunteer. The first link we're going to send out is for the Operations Committee, which is the committee that helps make the agenda for this meeting, because we need to fill it quickly. And then we'll get the list together for all the other committees, and we'll send out a survey. But in the meantime, if you know somebody that wants to serve and they just want to send us an email, we'll be happy to try to connect them with the right committee. So I'm happy to talk to anyone that wants to serve on a committee. And then I am going to stop sharing, and we will come back to this later, which was the feedback from the survey that everyone filled out. And I want to make sure that we have plenty of time to get to that. So thank you for letting me serve as your president. And we will go on to the next item, which is our consent agenda.
I do have a voting poll for the consent
voting poll for the consent agenda. Yes. So, can we basically pull up the consent agenda? It has been distributed. Okay, so what was sent out to you were curricular changes, the summer 2025 degree candidates, and the committee appointments. There are a few people that we didn't manage to get onto the consent agenda that have been placed on committees. Please feel free to go ahead and serve on the committees. We will make sure that it's on the consent agenda for next month. So what I would like to ask is if we can get a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move.
And a second? Okay, I saw Lewis raise his hand as a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, the poll is up. All right, and I am going, and we can share the results. So the motion has passed. So 98% yes, 1 abstain. So thank you all for passing the consent agenda. Next is approval of the 10-year calendar. We'll consider approval of the 10-year calendar, which I also believe was sent out. Do we have? Do what?
I think we're waiting for Michael Rendon.
Okay,
Hello, everyone.
there he is. He's here.
Glad to meet you guys. I don't know why, but try to ignore that as much as I can. Okay, so I just wanted, so this is my first time presenting to the Senate. It's not my first time doing this type of work. And in working with the previous registrar and listening to faculty members and other key administrators on campus, I want to right away acknowledge, I believe, what may be considered a pain point in the alignment of the UNM's calendar, especially the 10-year calendar, with Albuquerque Public Schools to that end, and also to CNM and to that end. I've reached out to various colleagues in both of those areas, and we have looked at it. I will note that CNM really doesn't go any further out than maybe 3 years. As I spoke to the registrar there recently also, they're on a 7-week part of term schedule, so that doesn't align. Also, I've talked to folks with the Albuquerque public school system, and depending on how the governor will send out how many allowable hours they have, or how long, or how they need to adjust their calendars. Those can change, and it can change maybe even a year ahead of time. So if we take a look at our 10-year calendar, that becomes a challenge, because someone suggested to me, well, don't have a 10-year, have a 5-year. But that doesn't solve the problem of our colleagues in other systems really doing it a couple of years out. And so as of for right now, you can notice at the very bottom, the blue part, I have added everything before from 2025 to 2034 has already gone through Senate and received approval. The 2035 is what I've added. And so we use these patterns of certain days of the semester starting on certain days, breaks happening on certain days. And this is used not only for admission purposes, but also federal financial aid and in planning. So that said, I'm offering you this 2035 addition to the 10-year calendar. And but I do want to acknowledge that I am looking for ways to have better alignment. It's a challenge, though. In my 26 years of being a registrar at different universities, it always is a challenge, but it doesn't mean that I shouldn't be working towards a solution. Are there any questions? Thank you, Dr. Scruggs. I appreciate it. And just to pull on that string of cooperation between administration, my office certainly, and the Faculty Senate. I've already engaged with Dr. Elders last year on a couple of projects, and in a spirit of cooperation and trying to find solutions, I am open. I believe it's my philosophy, and has been for years, that the bureaucracy needs to get out of the way of the learning endeavor. So that is my mission in, whether it's at Texas A&M or Nova Southeastern, wherever it might be, or even here at UNM. So I'm open for any questions or suggestions. And by the way, I haven't published this on our website only because I wanted your consent before I would have this published.
All right. Are there any other questions before we try to move this to a vote? So is there a motion to approve the 10-year calendar?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Do you have a poll for this one, Nancy? Yep, Teresa's working on it. Okay, give us just a second. For some reason, it's not letting it launch. There we go. All right, so the motion has passed. The 10-year calendar has been approved. Thank you. The next thing, that is on our agenda is a discussion of the budget. And I'm trying to, here we go. So we had invited Jeremy, who is the executive director of the Office of Planning, Budget, and Analysis, to come talk to us about budget priorities for the year. So, Jeremy, I am going to turn it over to you and to Nicole Dobson.
All right. Thanks, Roberta. And thank you everyone for having me today. I see a lot of familiar names and faces, so it's a pleasure to be speaking with you today. Roberta asked that we provide a quick overview of the budget process, and we presented a set of slides to the STAR committee at the last Board of Regents meeting that I thought we would just go through. Which does a really good job of kind of giving a high-level overview of the budget development process here at the university, and specifically looking at this year's budget cycle and timelines. And then, I'm open for any questions you might have at the end of this presentation. So let me share my screen. And hopefully everyone can see that okay. I was going to give an overview on our budget leadership team, again, in the budget development process here at the university. We'll do a little background on what the budget leadership team is, what the charges of that group, the current makeup of that group, this year's roster, some of the principles and strategies with which that group makes decisions, including priorities and some of the planning principles. And then again, looking ahead to our next fiscal year budget cycle for the development of our FY 26-27 budget, we will focus on some of the important budget leadership team timelines and deliverables this year, as well as our larger university planning timeline as it relates to both our operating and capital budget. So the budget leadership team, you'll hear it referred to as BLT, was really formed to create a broader voice in the university's budget development process. It is charged with making formal budget recommendations to the university president, who then in turn will make a final recommendation to our Board of Regents. That recommendation happens in the spring, with our final operating budget getting approved at the May Board of Regents meeting annually. This is a quick level overview of the charge of the budget leadership team. And on the right, you can see a diagram of essentially some of the interplay with all the groups that interact and are a part of the budget leadership team process, including that recommendation all the way up through the university president to the Board of Regents for the budget recommendation. Some of the things the budget leadership team is charged with doing includes evaluations of new initiatives and strategic investments, really diving into understanding the projected inflationary increases that we are likely to see on our core institutional operations. We also are very heavily focused on the outcomes of our legislative session. So we really ramp operations up in the budget leadership team during and just after the legislative session, because a lot of our core institutional funds, our instruction and general funds, are state funded. So the outcomes of the state legislature will largely inform some of the recommendations that come out in the springtime. So that's something we monitor and watch very closely. In addition, and I won't read all of these off, some other important things also tied to the legislative session are the levels of recommendations for faculty and staff compensation. Oftentimes we do follow, if there's a state mandated compensation increase. Those are things that we talk about as a group and that ultimately form part of our larger budget scenario and budget recommendation. This is the current roster for this year's budget leadership team. It's made up of 30 individuals. The budget leadership team is co-chaired by the Executive Vice President for Finance and Administration, Teresa Constantinidis, and is also co-chaired by the Provost. So Barbara Rodriguez is co-chair with Teresa this year. We have in our second group representation from academic affairs leadership, including Nicole Dobson, our Vice President for Enrollment Management. We do have a representative from the branch campuses, so Chancellor Gutierrez from Taos Branch. We also have the Vice President for Student Affairs, as well as the Vice President for Research. In the administration group, kind of in the middle, we have various representation across both Maine and HSC, including budget offices, human resources, IT, university controller, and the VP for Finance and Administration from the Health Sciences Center. Then we have our deans and faculty group. So we have representation from a select group of deans across, again, both HSC and main campus. And then the last group here on the right is our constituency group, which also brings about a really important voice from various constituency groups across campus that we deal with. There is Roberta, in her role as faculty senate president, is a voting member of the budget leadership team. We also have representation from staff council, so the new staff council president. Same is true for our student leaders in both ASUNM and GPSA. Another representative from the faculty senate includes the president for the faculty senate budget committee, Crystal Ward. And then we also have a chair or representative from the faculty and staff benefits committee. So those are the groups that are constitute the membership of the budget leadership team this year. These are some of the budget principles and strategies that the budget leadership team reviews and follows very closely as they do analysis and make decisions throughout the year. Again, I won't read all these for time purposes, but there is a definite focus with our budget development process on really following and understanding our university strategic framework and the UNM 2040 strategic plan. We are very mindful in the choices we make, and making sure that we take into account our most vulnerable populations of students, staff, and faculty. We want to ensure that we can continue to attract great students. So looking at it from a student support lens. We also want to make decisions that enhance our ability to engage in applied research, scholarship, and creative production. So really at the heart of our mission as an R1 institution. A definite focus on long-term sustainability. And with this, it's really ensuring that we are adequately investing in things that directly benefit compliance, safety, and security on campus. And then the last but not least, one of the things that we try to do is a long-term, long-range, all-enterprise, all-funds approach to budgeting. And what that means is every fall, we do a 10-year plan update of our core institutional funds. And that's not to say that we lay out exactly what's going to happen for the next 10 years, because nobody knows that. But we at least enter that conversation with reasonable planning assumptions based on what we think is happening with our student demographics, our enrollment, what we think might happen at a state level in terms of our investment in state funding, levels of compensation, our ability to absorb and adequately address inflationary increases in things that we see in our budget process every year. So that all enterprise long-range planning is a really important part of our planning process that helps guide some of the decision making. In addition, some of the goals that we have in the budget leadership team is really ensuring we have adequate investment in a number of different things, including student support, adequate investment in compensation for faculty, staff, and graduate students, investment in our facilities. So there's a portion of our core institutional funds that support facilities investment needs and deferred maintenance on our ING buildings across campus. Investment in infrastructure and systems, and that includes our digital infrastructure, and making sure that we have adequate investment and support there. Looking at our strategic academic and research initiatives, and also making sure that we have appropriate reserve balances. So in the event of an emergency or, again, just coming out of a pandemic, making sure that we as an institution have adequate reserve levels to, weather those kinds of storms. From a tuition and fee perspective, we do have a subcommittee that meets regularly and discusses tuition and fee recommendations. And some of the planning principles of that group include ensuring that we continue to have affordability for all New Mexicans, a cost transparency, as well as competitive rates that allow us to keep up with, again, those inflationary cost increases that we see year after year. This is a really high-level look at our budget leadership team calendar for the year. We do start at the beginning of the academic year, and the budget leadership team meets all the way up until the essentially the beginning of March. And that final March meeting is when we would formally propose a budget recommendation to President Stokes. The beginning of the calendar includes our annual kickoff meeting. During that call, we give a similar presentation on an overview of the budget leadership team process to new members. We do hear a fall enrollment update from our enrollment management office. This year, we're going to have an update from the vice presidents of research for both main campus and health sciences center regarding the federal funding impacts, because from a budgetary lens, that has a huge impact in the landscape that we're currently dealing with at a federal level. And then in October is when we start to hear our multi-year plan. So our 10-year core fund plan presentation is presented every year in October. In December, we will hear from our student fee review board. They are the group of student leaders that are in charge of putting forth a recommendation as it pertains to our mandatory student fee rates. In January, we will, again, coinciding with the start of the legislative session, we really start to gear up for understanding the recommendations coming out of both the Higher Education Department as well as the Legislative Finance Committee. Again, this year's legislative session kicks off on January 20th. We have a 30-day session this year, so it's a relatively short one, which concludes on February 19th. And the final governor veto deadline is March 11th, which typically coincides with our final budget recommendation date. We will hear presentations in late January from the executive vice presidents for finance and administration, academic affairs, as well as a presentation from the president's organizations pertaining to their multi-year planning forms and budget requests. We will start to hear preliminary and final budget scenarios in February with a lot of the budget leadership team subcommittee recommendations coming out in February. And again, with a view for the end of February, having a kind of a final recommendation formed out of that group that will go forward for presentation to the university president. And then this is my last slide, and this is essentially a lot of the things discussed in that previous slide, also incorporating some other elements of budget planning across the institution. And so my goal with this slide is really just to show you how intricate and involved our budget planning is at the university. It involves a ton of people, a ton of different groups. It kicks off as early as the summertime for the next fiscal year. So this is something, whether it's the student fee review board or capital outlay hearings, there seems to always be something from a budget planning and development perspective happening across the institution. All of our groups work very closely together. So just because, BLT may focus more on the operation side doesn't mean we're also not coordinating with our capital planning folks from a capital outlay and facility investment perspective. And so again, my point of this slide is just to tell you that our budget planning is very involved and involves so many people. And that's what I think what makes it a really great process here at the university. So with that, I will close and I welcome any questions that anyone might have.
Does anyone have any questions for Jeremy?
All right, well, thank you for having me, and I look forward to working with you all through the budget development process this year.
Thank you very much for coming and giving this overview of how the budget cycle, how it works. There is one question in the
Sure.
chat
Yeah,
What are the biggest challenges we are currently facing with the university budget?
it's a great question. So I would say the landscape in higher education right now is a very interesting one as it pertains to budget challenges. And UNM is no different there. So, one of the reasons we've invited the vice presidents from research to attend our kickoff meeting is so that our budget leadership team really understands the budgetary impacts that of what's happening at the federal level, not only as it pertains to policy and program changes, but funding changes. And that's both direct and indirect funding changes. And even though the budget leadership team focuses on our instruction and general budget, um, it's all related. So understanding the research world and the research needs is a really important aspect. And I would say this year that's probably one of the biggest challenges we face. Um, the other thing that we presented at during this month's finance and facilities meeting, obviously safety and security continue to be a top priority from a budget perspective. That's something that we've had on our priority list for several years now, and it continues to be an ongoing emphasis and priority from a university level to ensure that our students, faculty, and staff, feel safe in their environment. So, and I see another question. Yeah, go ahead. I think you're muted still. Sorry.
Sorry. I wonder who and when decides on which building on campuses to be renovated.
So that's a great question. That there's a separate group outside of our budget leadership team that really deals more in the capital world and specifically in the facilities investment needs and some of our deferred maintenance needs on campus. I don't participate in that group, but I believe it's the Capital Investment Planning Committee, CIP, that meets. I believe they are co-chaired, or they might have three chairs, including Tabia Allred from our Institutional Support Services Office, Nicole Dobson from Academic Affairs, and I believe Joe Roble from our Health Sciences Center. That group, and I can drop more information pertaining to that group in the chat, but they are the ones that make some of the recommendations as it pertains to capital outlay and facility investment needs across campus.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I see no more questions. I really do want to thank you for taking the time to do this and doing it on short notice for me. So I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. It's great to see everyone. Take care.
The next thing on our agenda actually is a time for public comment, which we're going to do before we move to the breakout group discussions. So do we have any public comment? I am not seeing. Okay, so we did not receive any requests. So there were no requests for public comment. So we can move to the discussion of the breakouts. So just for everybody's information, the discussion of the breakouts are open, but when we move into the breakouts, then we go into executive session for the breakout groups, and then we'll come back after the breakout groups and be in an open session again. But I wanted to basically start with a discussion of the breakout groups. And for most of you, you will remember that have been on the Faculty Senate. We did this last year. and Chris Elder had basically arranged these and had come up with this idea, and everybody seemed to like it, and it seemed to work well. So I wasn't sure if Chris is here. Did you see her? I do not see her. So basically, the way the breakout sessions worked was at the very beginning of the academic year, we all got together and we went into these random breakout sessions. And in the random breakout sessions, the people were just, you're randomly assigned to a group, and you sit around and you talk for like 30 minutes and you come up with what you think key priorities and areas that we should work on all year. And you take, somebody needs to take notes and they need to email those to me. And then we will put together a list of what was kind of cost cutting across all these groups. And we'll establish breakout groups that will then meet the rest of the year. But I'm going to start by telling you that one of the things that I did was I asked people to fill out a quick survey for me. So I'm going to share that survey with you so you can basically see that this is essentially the things that people said, and you'll see a lot of repetition in this. And I know this is probably somewhat difficult to see because it's small. I asked people if they could give me up to 3 breakout group suggestions, and research in a time of change was kind of a theme that went throughout. The violence in and around campus was another issue. There was one comment about that there was no salary increases for faculty members. There should have been a minimum of 4% for each faculty. I'm not sure about that because I don't know that that was true for everybody. There was somebody wanted us to discuss workload policy, medical leave, faculty intellectual property rights to course materials that they put in Canvas. A lot of discussion about the current political and climate and how it was going to impact us. And then what strengths we can identify and advocate be prioritized on campus. And consider university weaknesses and project implications for failure to act on the top issues. There were things about protection of our at-risk populations, so students, faculty, staff, and patients in light of the current federal actions, state legislative priorities, especially funding. A couple of people did bring up the Social Justice Committee, and just so you know, the Social Justice Committee is on its way to being an official committee of the Faculty Senate. So they meet on a regular basis. And if you want to be connected with them, we can help make that connection. But they're already on the path, and they have a separate meeting time outside of the Faculty Senate meeting at this point. And then, is there any forward thinking with regard to loss of funding, scholarships, loans, health insurance for faculty, staff, and students that is within the faculty's, control or level of influence? The role of faculty governance in higher education, faculty support for UNM communities and offices targeted by executive orders. So you can see executive orders are on everybody's mind. And then funding for TAs and RAs. And that's a big issue with decreasing. If research funding decreases, then that's going to become a big issue. Although, if you've seen the graduate students running around campus, main campus, especially the last couple of weeks, you will notice they have signs about how much they want to be paid and the benefits that they want. Equity inclusion actions throughout the university, not just in name only. They need to be seen. Norms, advice for faculty senators, and then support for faculty and staff regarding immigration issues, supporting faculty, especially new and mid-career, with work-life balance. Are students in North Campus treated differently than students on UNM's main campus? Are there ways that departments could be more physically responsible? And then a hotline for faculty questions, local community engagement, and faculty benefits and supports. So those are the ideas that were in the survey that came out. And what we're hoping is that that Teresa will be able to work some magic and divide us into some groups, and in those groups there will be more discussion. Let me see. Justin put a thing in there to contact them for plug-in to the Social Justice Committee. So so be sure and do that. And then anesthesia didn't get a 4%. I'm not sure about most School of Medicine faculty. So most School of Medicine, if you're on the budget committee, you'll learn this, are not paid through ING funds. So their raises really are totally separate from most of the rest of us. But it's mostly for, it's mostly for School of Medicine faculty. But it's still unfortunate that, that they get no raises, because certainly we know that we're not paying at the national average. So that being said, I didn't know if anybody wanted to have any discussion about this process, or do you want us to send you straight into breakout groups where you can discuss not only what you think the process should be, but what you think the priority topics are, remembering that somebody needs to take notes and email them to me, even if it means you just take a picture of your handwritten notes and send me an email of that picture of the notes. I can deal with that. What is your preference? Okay, go to breakout rooms. So that being said, that seems to be the consensus. So there are about, 52 of us. So maybe 7 or 8 breakout rooms would work, and just randomly assign people. Do you have the ability to do that, Teresa? She's nodding yes, thumbs up. And be sure and come back, because I want you to report out. So we'll put you in breakout rooms for 30 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. I'm seeing people starting to pop back in. So I was hoping what we would do now is take time for the groups to basically give some feedback on what they discussed and what they think some of the priority areas are for us to have as breakout groups, and then email me your list, and and I'll take those and I'll compile all of this with what people had already emailed me before our next meeting, and so that people know what the breakout groups will be. But we need to hear from you. What's your group discuss? So maybe if one person from each group could present, that'd be great.
Hi, this is Adrienne Warner, Faculty Senator from College of University Libraries and Learning Sciences. And in our group, we talked a lot about recruitment to just Faculty Senate in general, clarification around, or kind of brainstorming, I guess, around interventions that have been successful. One example that was raised was that the College of Arts and Sciences has multiple vacancies on Faculty Senate, and that represents like unequal representation, right? And so that's an issue. So we talked about what has worked in HSC to get recruitment efforts up. We talked about maybe some shoring up of more transparency around how senators get elected across schools and colleges, what's reported out to them, and more, just generally more effort to recruit and fill vacancies. We did have a few other topics come up, but that was the main one.
Thank you. Someone from another group.
Ken Craddock from Team 2. I'm University College Senator and Director of the Office of Pre-Health Professions, Student Development. Our team had a number of representatives from branch campuses, and so our main focus was around connections, really, between branch and main campus, especially when it came to transfers. We talked around students being concerned on a number of fronts. Some of it was safety security related. Some of it was transferring from the smaller campus environments of the branch campuses to main campus. And particularly for Native students, concerns centered around connections to community and tradition. And so some suggestion maybe some kind of working committee or subgroup could be formed to look at how successful transfer students are and whether main campus is meeting the needs and addressing concerns that our students at the branch campuses have. Are we addressing those to make it a comfortable transition and encourage them to not only come, but then be successful on main campus? And any Team 2 members, please jump in if I'm misrepresenting or missing anything important. That was the main, I think that really captured the main topic we talked about. And then the secondary topic that came up right at the end was the potential to work on a faculty remote work policy. Because it seems that it's a bit ad hoc at the moment, and there's nothing really formal in that regard. So there could be value in developing some policy guidelines around that. And that was what Team 2 covered.
Thank you. And I think there actually is a university committee that's addressing the remote work policy, but I can't remember who that is. So is there somebody from room 3?
So our room talked a little bit about a bunch of the different topics. Our room had a lot of first-time senators, so this is literally their first meeting, and so it's hard to really dive into topics when you're just figuring out what does it mean to be a faculty senator. But we did talk a little bit about the federal dysfunction, as the term was used, in different ways, what this can mean for students and or faculty who are international federal funding. We also talked about a little bit of the intellectual property rights of courses in Canvas, and we talked about artificial intelligence and guidelines related to that as a byproduct of that. We touched on a lot of the different topics within there, but also like how do things move forward from the Senate, and what is the purpose? How can we move things up to the regents and be successful in that? And I think as we come to our priorities, that'll be good topic as part of each of those breakout rooms on the priorities. Like, what do we want to do with this topic, and go from there.
Thank you. Did anybody have anything to add from group 3? All right, how about room 4?
I can start and then we can add, if I forgot. We came out with following ideas. One of the concern is how diversity initiatives and the research funding is going to be supported, because it's important for many faculties. This is one. Then relevant to that, it's service of local communities, specifically our local students. Then campus safety. And then faculty PNT support. There is, of course, Academic Freedom and Tenure Committee, but some faculty, particularly with research in diversity areas, they need support now, and they need to know how to proceed with the tenure processes. What help, if it can be. No, so essentially there are many different specifics to discuss, and this is why such a room could be very useful. And then the last one would be hotline for those questions which faculty don't know whom to address to. So the purpose of this room will not be answering these questions, but to help to locate committees or resources or people who will help with this. Okay, did I forget anything?
Well, nobody's saying anything, so I think you must have covered it. How about room 5?
We had room 5 with Adrian Warner, sorry.
Oh, okay. Room 6.
I could talk about that. My name is Osborne Pearson from Anthropology, and we largely focused on research in uncertain times and a lot of the uncertainty in funding in the current climate. And one of the things we talked about was asking the administration to game out some contingency plans based on funding levels that might come. I haven't heard many of those. There's so much uncertainty, but some plans for the various possibilities might be good to have. Workshops maybe on how to get sources of funding would be that are alternative to the federal government would also be good. One of our members raised questions about what are the implications of changed funding for untenured faculty, and perhaps a policy should be developed for faculty impacted by the change in federal funds. There would be something similar to what went on during COVID with changes in extra demand for work and changed research possibilities and so on for people who were going through that crucial pre-tenure period at that point. We also talked about the need to keep students interested and attracted to UNM. One of the big problems we may face is with caps on federal loans and ways in which we should probably think about ways that could be mitigated as much as possible, and to what extent we want the administration to really engage with the legislature on ways in which we can hopefully get some relief to New Mexico students. One of the particularly pressing ones was in health sciences for clinicians who are going to be healthcare providers. Some of the limits on federal loans may be below the cost of their programs. And this may, in fact, dissuade a lot of students from choosing those careers if they're not independently wealthy. And so, given that possibility, this might be a particularly crucial place to push the administration to interact with the legislature to get some more resources to perhaps support those students, perhaps with stipulations that they work in state with their specialties following their completion. And that was largely it.
You're muted, Roberta.
I said, I think that takes us to room 7. Thank you for saying something.
I think that's us. I think I remember seeing the number 7. We discussed a number of priorities. I think a through line for many of them was kind of a commitment to equity in different forms, expressed in different ways. So, for example, the issue of pay for faculty for School of Medicine or North Campus generally was an issue that we saw as our priority. I mean, given the importance of UNM Hospital for our state, that our faculty and others who, everybody who makes up the School of Medicine and UNM Hospital are valued, right? And retained and recruited. And there was at least one proposal for, a strategy or a step that could be taken toward addressing that issue. Another expression of this was equal pay for equal work for faculty across different campuses. That's a pressing concern for a number of faculty. We also expanded this beyond concerns directly for faculty, but a commitment to equity for faculty, staff, and students in various ways. So protecting the interests of our students, but there are a number of different ways in which there are concerns that our students are not treated equitably. And this can be addressed in what might seem like simple ways, like knowing important dates on the academic calendar so that they can plan accordingly, and having access to that information, access to food, right? Even restaurants, right? This can be really important, and we might have a lack of equity there. And then, as others have addressed, right, there is the concern of countering the impacts of the shifts and threats to federal funding in all sorts of ways. And right, so, and this again is a concern for faculty, but also if we're to support our community or our communities, the communities we serve, we need to have some kind of stability there. And so we want to prioritize protecting or addressing, right, the issues of the fact that we can be losing funding in various areas at any time. So there might have been a few other things I have here, but if anybody from my group wants to add anything, please do. Okay.
I think somehow I skipped group 1.
Yeah, I think we just have room 1 and room 8.
Okay. Anybody from room 1? I saw Grace put something up here. Did you want to speak to what you put up? Were you room 1?
Yeah, I think we were room 1. I can do that. So we had a couple brand new faculty senators mixed in with some existing faculty senators. We were all HSC related in one form or another, whether we were from kind of North Campus in Albuquerque or Gallup. Most of our discussion really centered around salary increases. A number of the faculty present in that breakout room were reporting that they did not receive the salary increase. And then we kind of came down to the fact that, sorry if you can hear my cat, that HSC is not unionized like main campus is. So we were kind of noting that there is not parity with national level salary for some of the colleges represented, and also that there may not be equity within some of the schools. And we think that there may be some interest in discussing unionization for HSC faculty. It might help address some of the recruitment needs as a lot of the HSC colleges are undergoing expansion in the coming years. We weren't sure if that was something that could be addressed through Faculty Senate or not.
Well, I certainly think we should try. You know, what we have power to do and what we should try to do aren't always the same. But did anybody else from Group 1 want to add anything? Okay, what about Room 8?
All right. So it was me from HSC and 2 of my colleagues from UNM Valencia. What did we talk about? We also talked about unionization, strengthening the existing union and possibly extending it to HSC, and whether that might help address some of the pay issues that seem to hinder recruitment of healthcare providers to the UNM system. We talked about the overall existential threat to academia, research, intellectual freedom. We talked about ongoing concerns about ICE, immigration issues, etc., of students and faculty. We talked about the ongoing work of the Social Justice Committee, participation in mutual defense, and potentially getting organized with other campuses like CNM in those types of efforts. Another issue that was brought up was just kind of overall communication, that as senators, we come to Faculty Senate and we hear information, and that's good, but sometimes our pressing questions aren't answered in the Faculty Senate meeting, and sometimes it's really hard to know how to get information. And sometimes it's hard to know how to best disseminate it. If, I can send email to a department listserv, but that only reaches the faculty in my department. I don't really actually have a way to communicate more broadly within my school or campus. Let's see. And then we also talked about the sort of big question of where will Faculty Senate's energy go in the coming year, and the fact that the uncertainty at the federal level is kind of making it hard to know in some cases where the biggest crisis is. I thought research was going to be a bigger crisis than it is right now, but so far some of the threats of cuts to things haven't come to fruition, but other threats seem to be more real. And so, yeah, just trying to figure out the whole uncertain federal landscape and knowing where to focus our energies is an interesting question. And I guess the last thing I'll mention is the campus security issue, and not overreacting to recent incidents of violence to the point that we lock down our campus so that it sort of feels like a prison.
Did anyone else want to add any comments to anything that was said? So, so if people have been following the chat, Chris and Rosanna are going to get together and talk more about the memo that the operations committee sent last year, that was related to remote work, and that work should be ongoing. If everybody will remember to send me your notes, what I'm going to do is I am going to, and also, by the way, there is now a link in here to the Smart Sheet to sign up for the hospital tour. So it's limited to the first 25 to 30 people that sign up. Sorry about the short notice, but send me your notes about what you discuss. I'm going to take these, I'm going to compile them all, and based on the size of our group, come up with 7 to 8 topics that we can discuss. If there weren't 7 to 8 strong topics, I think there were, then we'll have groups that split into more than one group. So we don't want the groups to get so big that you guys actually can't fit a word in. So we want you to be able to talk. So at the next meeting, we will start doing these. We'll also try to figure out a good month to have a face-to-face meeting, and then we need to think about gauging your interest if you want to have a bigger faculty senate retreat at either sometime later in the fall or earlier or early in the spring, so that we can really have some quality time together. With that said, I have nothing else unless anybody has any last comments. And hearing none, I think we need a motion to adjourn. I got it.
I move to adjourn.
Seconded. All right. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, the motion to. Thank you all for coming. Be sure, if you're interested, to sign up for the hospital tour. The link is in the chat. So before we sign out, click that link. Thank you all.
Thank you.